Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.
Welcome to Minutes with the Mayor, brought to you by our friends at Mercantile Bank, and I am with Mayor Linda Moore. Hello there.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. You had another eventful city council meeting, but before I get into that, you and I talked last week about traffic flow and all that great stuff. And if you want to know which streets are closed, you have provided a map that we have. You've provided public access to. We will have that map embedded below this interview, and we're trying to find a way to embed it on the site.
Great.
So you will always be able to just click it and know where to go or where not to go or where to avoid for all the construction.
Absolutely. And in fact, we'll make sure you have any updates as we go as well.
Well, it's a Google Doc, so it should
That's
be
right.
pretty easy just
That's
plugging it out
play.
and stuff.
Yes.
So, and also eventually we'll get that pothole grid embedded too.
Okay.
But we wanted to get the road construction first.
That's
that was
right.
the biggie. So, a couple of big things last night on the agenda, including the Housing Commission, and of course we've been talking about housing for years. And now that you've established this task force that will be chaired by Carol Eamon, 4th Ward Alderman, and Paul Havermail, a former alderman who's the head of the Vets Commission, what do you expect? What is your vision on what this commission is going to eventually bring to the city or to the table?
They'll take the United Way housing study from the 2024 needs assessment booklet, and they will assign dates, players, times, values to that list of this is how many housing units we need in each category by this date. And so the question is then, well, how are we going to get there? We know what we need. How do we get there? This strategic task force will put together that strategy to get us there so that we can achieve those goals within the next 7 to 8 years.
Will the task force also, I mean, again, there's a macro and a micro way to do this. Will they get into it to the point that we don't have another situation that happened like on Columbus Road where we had a developer who came in and, the previous administration basically said this is a done deal and then it wasn't a done deal all of a sudden? Will we be able to avoid things like that in the future?
Potentially. And I think what they will do is they will look at where do we have the right zoning already. If there's an area that might need a zoning change, then of course they would have to take that back through all the proper channels. So it's going to be easier if they start with areas that are already zoned for multifamily housing for, multifamily houses or single family homes for the single family units.
And again, we had that situation over on Columbus Road, and then of course we had the solar farm Ellington situation. But again, it's also going to be a case where developers, when farmers get old enough to retire and they're going to sell their land and get it from agricultural to maybe some sort. Okay, if you're not going to get a solar farm put there, maybe you get some housing and some complexes put there. And again, we were talking earlier about another one that's on the north end of town. We talked about another one on the south end of town, in which trying to work into this and find out what is going to be built there, and most importantly, it has to be things that are going to be affordable and usable, right?
Correct. And we found that we need housing units at all price points, from the affordable housing units to market rate to senior housing to luxury housing. We have a need across the board for all types, from single family to multifamily, apartment complexes to neighborhoods. And so we need to take a look at all of that and see how that all plays together. Given our current footprint, where do we have property that we can locate some of these homes, and what type of homes can go there? How much is it going to cost? Who are the financial players that are going to make that happen? Who are the builders that are going to make that happen? And really just put together a comprehensive strategic mix, because right now we know we need housing. We don't have enough builders. We don't have enough construction laborers. We don't have good financing right now because interest rates still haven't come down to where they were a few years ago. So how do we put all this together to make it work? And if we can do that, then all of these open jobs that we have at a lot of our manufacturing companies and some of our bigger companies, we can fill those jobs because now here's our plan to get housing for them.
And again, I think this also ties into a lot of other things that city is doing. We had the study, we had the grants and the money that some developers were given to do certain grants, to do certain projects. But also when you've got, fixed or flattened properties and things like that, where I don't think it's a problem of land being available. I think the problem is, like you said, I think it's the contractors and their workers that's the problem right now.
Right, yeah, we just don't have enough.
Okay.
Yeah,
One other issue to discuss, the Sports Commission. Is this where you're announcing we're building the NFL stadium and we're going to get an NFL team in 5 years?
if it was April 1st, yes.
Sorry,
Yeah,
thought I'd try.
We're probably not going to have an
the
NFL
Bears,
team.
the Bears are having their issues right now.
That's right.
I'm just saying they could come down here. They'd be fine. We take care
Oh,
of
yeah.
them.
I think it's a matter of we kind of know what we have, and we sort of know what we need, but how do we get there? Once again, this is a how do we get there? The other thing is we have some wonderful sporting events in this community. And I mean, if you're a sports fan, Quincy is a great place to be. How can we take some of those sporting events and grow them even bigger, or maybe replicate them in other sports to give more people the opportunity? If we're going to do that, who's going to sponsor them? We have a limited number of sponsorships in the area. So how do we get that? How do we, maybe get television coverage for the big events like the Grand Prix or the Quincy Shootout? We've had some, but how do we just put this all together and make it bigger? And of course, the end goal is to increase the number of sport tourism dollars that come into our community. That means heads and beds for the hotels, cheeks and seats for the restaurants, and more sales for the retail businesses as well. All of that then translates to more tax dollars for the city, which means we don't have to look at property tax, we don't have to look at residents to foot the bill all the time.
So when you look at that and you're looking at, one of the other things that came up was also Jason Parrott gave a breakdown of kind of some of the bet on Q and leg up stuff. That would be a case where some of those dollars, that's kind of what that fund was created for.
Sure.
Was to do this. So you're going to have, are we still looking at having the Bet on Q committee and the commission, or would one supersede the other? How can those two things work together?
Well, one doesn't necessarily replace the other. Okay. Bet on Q is about entertainment overall. So it could be sporting events, it could be music events, it could be concerts, it could be something else, festivals, fairs and festivals. So Bet on Q is something a little bit different. The Sports Commission will focus specifically on the sports side, much like, we have the oldest art commission in the world, right. In our Arts Quincy. So, arts is pretty much covered. But in sports, we're still a little bit disjointed. Let's bring it all together and make sure we're all working together and rising tide raises all boats.
And the members of that committee, obviously you'll have representation from the body, the Park District, the school district, and QND, all the QU, all the people, right. John Wood. I mean, that's the primary builders right there, and then getting input from other organizers and things like that. So I think that's kind of your core, I would think. What do you envision as far as how many people would be on the committee?
Well, we could have 20, 25 people pretty easily because you're going to have those who are sport experts. You're going to have the facilities. I want to have banks or financing or private equity firms. I want to have that financial element represented. Then I also want to have just some members at large. Maybe they're parents whose kids are playing travel ball, or maybe they're former coaches or current coaches, people that have an interest in seeing sports in the community grow.
Well, and again, I think this is something that's long overdue. Again, and it's also about coordinating all these events because, again, when you look at what we have, and we've talked about this several times, and I've talked about this on Club Muddy and some other programs, between Boots Bush and Paul Dennis, you've already got the soccer area. Wavering Mormon is kind of the baseball/softball area. We're looking for those spaces that can be more volleyball, basketball, centric. So again, I think if the commission has all these people working in conjunction, then we can really make this thing grow. And again, we've gotten off to a late start on this. Not you. I mean, you've been in the job 5 minutes. I'm just talking about the city as a community as a whole has really just kind of drug its feet on this. So I think it's good to see some leadership on this, and I think the commission will be something that will certainly be able to open up some new avenues.
I hope so, and I want to do it without using taxpayer dollars. That's the other key. I think the message was loud and clear when we had the feasibility study presented to us. People do not want to see their tax dollars go for a building. Right. We've been there, done that. So how do we make that happen without using taxpayer dollars? Maybe it's taxpayer incentives, from taxpayer dollars, but not necessarily, hey, we're going to charge you 10 and 10 and 10 and 10, and everybody who owns a home is going to pay more. Sure. We don't want that.
Yeah, we heard. Yeah, like I said, everybody.
We're taxed enough already.
Everybody getting their property tax bill has everybody very hypersensitive about the issue right now.
Yes.
That's for sure. So, anything else before we sign off here?
Next week, we can talk about some of the nonprofit organizations and what they're doing.
Great.
We have Strike Out Hunger coming up next week for Horizons. So maybe we can talk about that next week. Stay tuned.
And the Quincy Bears?
And why not the Quincy Bears?
I'm just trying to say, make some calls. So,
Growl.
Mayor Moore, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you next week. Once again, I want to thank Mercantile for sponsoring Minutes with the Mayor.
Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.